Welcome to section 2 on our discussion about the shortage of HGV drivers. The next thing we look at is government policy. So should HGV driving be permanently added to the shortage occupation list to allow for easier entry via sponsorship, or does this simply suppress the wages of domestic workers? You know, so what's your thoughts on that?
David, that the problem with that is there is a driver shortage across Europe as well. So if you look at Spain, if you look at Germany, there are driver shortages. So actually having that change made to the shortage occupation list wouldn't necessarily be a panacea. So I think we do need to think about homegrown drivers training, retaining, rather than looking abroad, unfortunately.
Okay. And you know, in a way, it's a symptom of trying to tap into foreign drivers that's created where we are today, because we haven't actually had the will to tackle the underlying problem and get more young people into the sector and let that driving role be seen as a career choice rather than a low-paid, unappreciated job. So I agree with David on that one.
Going to ask if that's okay. It just ties into it, David, if that's all right. Is it the government's responsibility then to fund skilled boot camps for drivers, or should it be left with private haulage companies to be the primary responsibility for training? Can I go for you, David C?
Yeah, this is obviously a big one. What we need to have is a blend of all of these things. I think that if we're going to have boot camps, we need to have them on a sustained basis. So they need to be created long term. If we have 5,000 going into work over a 2-year period and 10,000 trained, then that's not a great example. But it's one of those things that will grow over time. Boot camps take time to bed in, and the problem with the cycles that we have in government is they're too short to get efficient models delivered in scale. So what you need to have is a number of different offers. So boot camp could be part of that. I think that both urban and LGV, if we look at urban as an example, 100% increase in volume over the last 12 months. So, you know, our class 2s, we're starting to get additional volume coming through. But again, that's only 889 or something like that for that period, for 12 months. If we're looking at the volumes, it needs to be many more different options that the government need to address. And I think that what Kevin's alluded to in the pathways that we're looking at is taking a much more modular approach to education in its entirety and looking from foundation to, you know, senior management level, but a focus in all of that with transport management and drivers at the core of it will certainly help develop the right long-term skill set for the sector. And I think that, you know, maybe there is some need to recruit drivers externally, Kevin, just in the short term. But unfortunately, we've got to that bottleneck again, where, you know, we're hitting all of the issues that we've got at the moment. And we haven't resolved the problems of the past, and that's where we keep on getting to. We keep on getting in this cycle, and then we panic, and then we haven't got the structure and the foundations in place to really build long-term career progression for everybody. And that's what we need. Rebranding, career progression, all part of the same story, I think.
Okay.
And just to add to that, I think it's really important that it's also through a national lens, or ideally a UK-wide lens. You know, a challenge we've got is logistics in many ways is a UK-wide sector. I know there are parts of it that focus regionally, so it's not uniform, but the types of skills that are required are relatively uniform nationally, and that is running counter to the government's devolution agenda. And it's wanting to give more power to regional mayors to drive their own growth agendas in those regions, which comes with it their own skills angles to supporting that growth. So we're going to have to navigate that both by increasing awareness in government that we've got national requirements, and also engaging with regional mayors who've now got funding for things like boot camps, that they do need to think about logistics for their regions, and awkwardly, and this is where devolution can be a challenge, logistics based in their region that supports other regions, which is basically the whole of the Midlands. Like, it isn't, the logistics isn't in the Midlands to serve the Midlands. It's because it's in the middle of the country. And
one of the things we've talked about is the funding of courses. So the apprenticeship levy, or the growth and skills levy, as it is now termed, is just too rigid. So one of the asks that we make of government is actually whether this could be used for short courses, so training drivers. At the moment, it's not geared towards that, and actually that flexibility would also help people get the most out of it, because there is that frustration if you're a company that pays into the apprenticeship levy and actually you're not getting the benefit from it. But a loosening of that, looking at those short courses and how we can fund those, get people into the industry, I think would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I think we had through that. I think a lot of us had hoped when Labour started talking about that it would be more flexible. We've had the beginning of those announcements from Pat McFadden earlier this week, with a small number of apprenticeship units announced. A couple of them are pretty relevant for logistics, not to driving. You know, it's artificial intelligence unit, and also related to vehicle charging. But it feels like, you know, we'll now need a particular push on Skills England to get some units, apprenticeship units, in that suite that are more relevant to driving.
It's the first step, though, I think, and they've identified those sectors. I'm already developing some AI for a particular large logistics organisation in the unit style, and I think that is definitely going to be the way forward. And I think as they transition beyond the 8 sectors and into the next batch, I think logistics will be in there, and I think we will have opportunities to put units together as short as, you know, a few weeks, and we can start to build modular structured programs that deliver the results for the sector, rather than take something off the shelf and deliver it. That's what we need. That's what we've always said we needed for, I don't know, the 20 years I've been in sector. We've always said that's what we require to support the sector. And I believe they're listening. It's always the issue about how you fund. How do you fund units? How does that mirror back into this world? And then it's getting short courses to be recognised, so it's getting them to some kind of off-qual recognition. How does that happen, and what do we pick that meets the needs? But all of that has to come from a coherent approach from Logistics UK and RHA and the sector overall, to say here's exactly what we need. And I don't think anybody has really detailed that in, you know, what does 100% satisfied look like? What's the perfect image? I think that Kevin's doing some work on that at the moment, but I think that's where we need to come to quite quickly.
We need to do an internal PR role in terms of developing that message, because at the moment, since the levy was introduced, the sector's paid in almost 1.5 billion and probably only recovered about 400 million in terms of apprenticeships that it's utilised. So across the industry, we've got a certain amount of cynicism about the apprenticeship levy and what it can actually deliver. So we're going to have to change that mindset in the industry, as well as being able to have shorter courses which are more relevant to what our needs are.
No, well said, Jim. And I think, you know, again, from an outsider, you know, that works in the logistics sector looking in, you know, almost need and we'll talk about it at the end, but a single voice that represents and works on behalf of all of you companies and associations, you know, that someone can listen to. You know, it'd be great if you could do that. To what extent, you know, is the shortage in HGV drivers caused by maybe lack of government investment in safe, clean roads first, and also the road facilities, you know, rest stops, etc., staying overnight places, which don't seem anecdotally to be as good as the European options?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've got a culture and a political policy culture in this country of seeing investment in transport as an underpinning of growth. It's relatively reactive, dealing with points of congestion, very passenger and motorist focused. Unlike, if we turn the clock back to why the railways were built in this country for the first place, when it was part of the Industrial Revolution and building for logistics. Other parts of Europe, not all parts, but other parts of Europe do it better and recognise that efficient transport corridors, whether road or rail, connecting to ports and key cargo aviation hubs, they see that as more central to the economy than we do here, and we need to start to address that. I think it's good. It's really positive that we've got a chancellor that's focused on infrastructure as a way of achieving growth. What we need is a Department for Transport that's talking the right language to the Treasury and plugging in ideas for schemes, infrastructure schemes that speak to that growth message, rather than dealing with maybe legacy transport network issues that it had on the list for 10, 20 years, and be a bit more strategic. We did some research of Oxford Economics 2 or 3 years ago that directly related the UK's productivity challenge with our underinvestment in infrastructure compared to our international peers. And then we also did some work the year later to identify the the UK logistics network, which is something the government said it would do, but hasn't. The last government said it would do, to be fair. This one never said it would do it, but still hasn't done it. To identify the key road and rail routes, how they link to the ports and the airports, where the bottlenecks will be if we're going to achieve growth, and to try and get that kind of proactive growth mindset on our infrastructure. We're not there yet, but we need to keep pushing on that.
And it's viewing facilities as critical infrastructure. I think what we need to see is the government to view it as something that is essential for logistics, for the whole UK economy to actually function. So it's not a nice to have; it's something that is integral, and part of that needs to be through planning. And when large facilities are planned, actually, you think about facilities as part of a wider investment in an area, when it's whether it's industrial development, whether it's housing development. Actually thinking about facilities as part of that is really important. And I think thinking about the recruitment and retention of drivers, the lack of facilities is an issue, and the lack of secure facilities as well. So only around 4% of HGV parking is actually secure. So when you think about the challenges you have as a driver, actually the stress of being in an environment where it's not safe, you don't feel safe, there's a threat of freight crime, also feeds into that negativity that you may feel as a driver, and feeds again into the retention issue as well. Particularly
as a female driver, as well. I've got 2 daughters, and if they said they were going in that would be a concern for me. So that's very good. Any comments on that yourself, Kevin?
Look, it is an issue, but I think, due respect, we're getting fixated with one segment of the driver population again, and it's not the whole driver population that needs overnight stays and safe showers and things like that. Only people who travel outside their local area. Our biggest shortage is going to become that final mile solution, and they're not worried so much about overnight. They're worried about being paid properly. They're worried about career paths. They're worried about local road congestion, and all those kind of things. So it is relevant, but I think we shouldn't get distracted from the bigger picture of what we need to accomplish as a sector, and we actually need to stop only approaching government about problems that affect that narrow strand, and see the whole landscape of what government needs to look at. And that is critical, because we'll end up with another silly decision if we don't, because we've got this problem now with lack of Class 2 drivers, because the lobbying around the Class 1 was stronger, and it suited the big players to have that. but it's now created a monstrous problem that is going to be enormous in the next 5 years if we don't react to it today. So, it's important, but I don't think it's the most important thing.
Good. Well, my next question's almost answered itself, because I was going to say to you, will there still be a shortage of HGV drivers next 5 years from now? So without asking the question, I'm sure we're all thinking from the conversation there will be. So let's start looking at some takeaways. So what can we do? Because we're talking about it and we've reflected on it nicely. What can we do, to improve the situation? Sort of like direct takeaways. So, the one thing I was thinking about is, we're talking about perception of the industry, etc. Is there such a thing as a marketing budget for the industry to market itself? And that sounds quite a radical thing, but is there, or could there be one where a group gets together?
To think about, I don't think there's any silver bullet to any of this. Yes, there will still be a driver shortage compared to the amount of drivers the economy needs.
Yeah, that's a given.
And especially if we're going to get the economy growing, which I think we all want and need it to. And there's no silver bullet because there's this whole pathway of whether we're, whether we're talking about young people thinking about their future, whether we're talking about slightly older young people when they're actually applying, when they're joining. We can see in the statistics, there's a dip in the driver demographic, actually not at the youngest age, but sort of more, 40s. So it seems to sort of relate to probably what Kevin was talking about. But people think, well, they start and it's all right, but then they have a family and then they move away. So it's different stages of life, and there are different.
But then the question was,
stage. But on the PR,
the question was
on a PR campaign, there is a PR campaign aimed at young people to consider a career in logistics. It's been going for the last few years. It's been really successful, and through trade associations and other work, there is a huge amount of, we could call it government PR campaign to encourage government to raise awareness or to understand the importance of logistics. There's probably, I'd say, a lot more needs to be done at the local authority and combined authority level, given the devolution agenda, to address their understanding of what logistics needs to deliver, particularly in urban areas, but also for planning in wider areas. So we need to be focused on the audience because it's different for the different challenge.
But you said, Ben, and obviously it's all news to me. So you said there is a campaign going, but who owns it? And is there like a general budget? That's what I'm saying. So is this a Logistics UK thing you're talking about, or because I'm thinking a much bigger thing than that? So almost a group of all the associations and the association.
So that's what we're trying to create. That's what we're trying to create in the career logistics career partnership. Its purpose is really two areas. It is to make sure we drive awareness at a level far greater than we've ever been able to achieve before. Because we go back to the point, UK Logistics does a bit, RHA does a bit, other organisations do a bit. It's disjointed. It's not a single voice, and therefore you don't maximise your message, right? And impact with government particularly, because there needs to be some change there, and we need to create more might than we have. You go back to the fuel lobbying, right? When we were able to get the fuel, and I was involved in that heavily at the time, when we were able to get, Fairfuel was able to get the freeze from government on fuel duty, it wasn't the road haulage or UK Logistics or drivers, doing anything individually. It was actually because I think it was the RAC got involved, and the number of voters that was behind the RAC in the run up to election, where their cars became an issue with fuel duty, was what swung it, right? Government don't care about any of these things. They care about votes, right? And our voice is not loud enough. And the lobbying thing is around, where is our risk? How much power has this organisation got? I mean, I learned some interesting things today about how much we're putting into the levy and how little we're getting back. These are things that we need to maximise on. So I think there is things that happen, but it's nowhere near enough. And it's more of the same things rather than we need to reinvent the wheel if we're going to get through this as a sector. And that single voice with everybody being part of that voice is necessary.
You need to raise awareness, but you need to have a home for them as well. Sorry, Ben.
Just to answer your question, Generation Logistics is what I'm talking about. And it's not a Logistics UK campaign. It's got 40 plus organisations involved in it. And it's had a significant impact on young people's awareness of the sector and willingness to consider a career in the sector. So I think it is a positive example of collaboration. It's not the whole answer, but it's something that it's only a few years old and it is having a big impact.
I think from your perspective, Ben, I think that's absolutely right. But what we've got to do then is raise the awareness to give them somewhere to go. So you've got to get that brand, get them realising that there's a pathway that they can do. Now, construction, I keep on coming back to construction because they've done it really well. They've got these 10 centres of excellence on a national basis where you're getting the brand awareness. People are proud to wear construction on a T-shirt. They're then focused on going to a college. They've got a program that they can deliver. They know that they're going to come in at this level and progress and develop. We just haven't got that. We've never had that journey. So what we need to do is certainly raise awareness, absolutely raise awareness, but we need to give them clear visibility of the journey that they're on once that awareness is raised, get them to a brand where Logistics UK is a brand they want to wear on the T-shirt. They realise it has an impact on UK PLC, and then give them true exciting pathways. That's the other thing. Traditionally, our education and what we've provided hasn't been targeted and delivered in a way that will inspire. And what we've got to do is, when we're coming back to reinventing this, we've got to get it to a programme that people want to share. They want to tell people, I'm on this program, and it is incredible. The experiences I've had, the opportunities that I've got now, and we have to realise that actually outside of driving, the logistics sector has some really well-paid positions. In team leader and in management, in those kinds of roles, it's a good sector to be in. So we have to paint it in the round, and drivers are a core part of that, but they're not the whole picture. We've got to paint logistics as a visionary piece. We have to make people really understand what we're talking about. I think that's my mission every day. That's what I get out of bed for. But
100% right. And not to undermine what Generation Logistics have done and have tried to do, but a lot of that's being lost because there is no signpost for where them to go to get the career in logistics. And that's the gap we need to fill is Logistics UK, Generation Logistics need to come together in the new structure so that we're solving all of the problem, take the momentum that Generational Logistics have already created, build upon that, invest more money into it, because the likelihood is that Generational Logistics will fail over the next 5 years unless we add this career structure path behind it, because I can tell you that companies will get fed up paying into it unless they can see an end result. And they can't measure an end result at the moment, if there is one, right? So, what we want to be able to say is we created awareness and we took from 0 to X number of thousand young people coming in through our career paths every year. That's tangible, it's real. So when you go to ask people to invest in that structure, to say, yeah, I will help with you, with awareness, you can demonstrate that awareness actually has an end result. And I think that's the squaring of the circle that we're trying to do with Logistics Career Partnership. We'll bring all of the elements together and make sure that the voices are heard and the career paths to delivery.
Yeah. But we also have to have innovation. It's about innovation hubs, Ben, as well. I believe that what we have to have is that, it can't just be, it can't be wagons. We need to have AI. We need to have big data. We need to have all of that embedded. And, National College of Logistics will have 1,500 students go through the doors this year, but great, 3,000 next year if everything goes according to plan, funding available, and all the other things that go into that role. But I think there's some positives, but as Kevin says, without integrating now, we'll never achieve the ongoing volume, I think.
Yeah, guys, we're blessed to have some good people, and again, thank you for your time. But we've got obviously Logistics UK, we've got the RHA, we've got people providing funding and training into the sector. We've got Kevin, and if Paul Sanders, from the APN, wasn't at the HSBC conference day, he would have been on here. Would you guys and people maybe look at yourselves getting together quarterly and just discussing these things? Because that's got to be the way, because you really want to have whatever it is, whatever name's on it, one voice that you all contribute to, you're all happy to, and obviously it's got to add and complement what you do individually. Would that be something? Because it'd be nice to have, I keep using the same term, one voice, because one voice will be heard, won't it, and supported. And then, like you say, once you get some deliverables and some things coming out of it, you get the law of attraction, don't you? People, I want to be part of that. I want to be contributing to that, and it can drive it, because the sort of have a think about that. It might be worth something for you guys and girls to all do. Because also the other thing that I sort of want to mention is, like, what we're trying to do here is we're talking about HGV, but make it a more aspirational role and a respected role and critical role to UK PLC. So, to get one voice would be great if we could do that. I think we all sort of agree now, aren't we?
One voice is what we need, definitely.
There's been a number of times that we've tried different collaborative initiatives across the sector, and unfortunately they haven't always succeeded for one reason or another. And obviously the logistics career partnership, if that's successful, then yes, that's one way of having one voice for the industry. But I think one of the first objectives of any collaboration needs to be to reinstate logistics as a priority sector in terms of skills shortage. The government took it off the list of priority sectors. So we've got to get that first of all reinstated to get our message with government and policies, really, rather than as well as in our own industry and attracting people into it.
And how is that done, Jim? Is that, and I'll ask Ben and David B, is that through influence? How is that done? Or is there some sort of technical emergency that makes them do it? Or can that be done through influence and conversations?
I think it has to be done through lobbying, yes. Yeah, so making the government more aware of the issues that we've got, the issues that obviously that Kevin's outlined in terms of the way he foresees the shortage continuing and hitting, particularly, obviously he's highlighted Cat C drivers. But yeah, to take on David Cormack's point as well, it isn't just purely about drivers. We do have to look at the whole sector. The warehousing operations since COVID and more online retailing, warehousing operations have continually had a higher demand for warehouse operatives and a shortage there. And people I talk to, you talk about people entering the industry as warehouse operatives, and then they might rise to become drivers, and then they may become either warehouse managers and transport managers. And if you actually look at the number of transport managers, transport manager CPC holders, around about 50% of them actually started off as drivers. So that career path is there. We don't, unfortunately, again, it's another one of these things that we don't shout about enough.
It's there, but it's not formalised enough. I mean, we have a structure that takes a 16-year-old school leaver per se with no qualifications and teaches them from the basics up as a foundation level into warehousing type roles, and because he won't be able to drive a car at that age, getting them into lower level licensing HGV, allowing them to go on and build academic qualifications into team leader and management. That's the kind of structures. I mean, we do that at Palex ourselves. We've had a lot of success of it, but it's not there nationally with meaningful qualifications behind it, and that's what we need. And they actually take the modules and then go, right, okay, and I want to go and do a sales and marketing module so that I can move into that type of role. I've been driving now for 10 years, I've got a wife and 2 kids. I want to be home at night. I like that guy with the BMW earning 60, 70 grand a year. I want to be him. But, you know, and he can get that modular course done and get those jobs. Which I can tell you now, I would double the number of salespeople we had in pallets. I can't get them. They're not out there. So you're right, David. It's the whole breadth of what we've got to offer that we're not capitalising on.
Yeah. The program I've developed recently is called Entry into Logistics, and that is unit based. It's not any qualifications off a shelf. It's a boot camp structure. It's structured over 3 weeks, and it's an entry into logistics. And it's been so successful. Every large warehousing group has taken it, and it's I've got people graduating today, but it's about creating a vision for the sector. So week 1 is all about just about the sector. It's just about sharing the sector. Week 2 is about the specifics of what a role, if a role could be, and then week 3 is getting ready for what the world of work is going to be like in logistics. And
here's why this is important. These guys at the moment are trying to lobby government because that doesn't really exist. You could go to government with hang on, you've got a problem with 16 to 25-year-olds, 1 in 8 unemployed or not in education. We have got a scheme in our sector, our industry that deals with that. Let's get some support. Let's get this happening. And they'd want to listen to that because it's politically hot, right? They've said it as something they want to achieve. But we are not organised enough to have that fully in play. And that's what we've got to get in play.
Yeah, it's demonstrating that there is something that is successful that is being delivered already, and then government likes to adopt things that are already out there and being effectively delivered, and that's very much my model. We'll take some pain to develop these programs and get them out there because it's absolutely key that we're able to have those conversations and say that this is the future.
David, I do this logistic explain, and we do interviews with chief execs and different people from different companies. And one of the questions we ask is, what brought you into the logistics industry? And we started in June 2024. No one, I've asked the question, actually planned to get into it. Everyone fell into it, including myself, probably all you guys. So, so we want to make it much more attractive, have an excitement. And we all know what a wonderful career it is, and as someone said before we start recording, I think roughly 1 in 12 are either working in or something closely related, to the logistics industry. So for government UK PLC, it's an important thing. Really important thing. So hopefully we can do that and move things along. So really appreciate all your time and that, guys. So what we'll do is just go around. We're going to come to an end now, and obviously we could have the magic bullet, we'd have fired it. So if there's one thing that you think we should be doing as an industry in the next, let's say 6 months rather than 6 years, what would that be? So should we start with you, Kevin? Are you okay to start with that one, Kevin?
Well, I think we've already started it. We need a single voice with more power that can lobby government and put career structures behind it. We need all of the voices in the industry, the trade associations, the large players to vest to this for a common good. Taking the good work done by Generational Logistics so far and saying, right, that's part of the puzzle, but it's not all of the puzzle. We've got great work being done and started to be done at the National College. Take that, add to those things that are already there, and push forward hard in the next 6 months with the campaign to make the awareness of the careers partnership we're creating, and use it to lobby against government.
Thank you. David C, sorry.
I would agree with what Kevin said. So raise awareness, create a brand, and get pathways that really mean something to the sector, and populate those pathways with great motivated people who understand that their future and career is in logistics.
Wonderful, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I think we need to be positive about the, as we mentioned, the collaborations that have started and are ongoing, and build on them, and build that into the message that we're taking to government, making clear how doing these things, getting more people young people into the sector and training and progressing through the sector, as does happen, but telling it in a clear as story as possible, showing how that meets the government's growth objectives, our growth objectives, and also in particular at the moment on a skills front, tackles the growing issue of NEETs that the government's clearly so focused on, and is you should be a worry for all of us.
Thank you. And David B?
Yeah, on collaboration, a lot is happening at the moment, obviously with Generation Logistics, the work we do as fellow trade associations coming together. So there are lots of positive conversations. So it's building on that and making sure we do collaborate. I think I know you've said 6 months, but we also need to think about some of those long-term drivers as well. So talking to government about the growth and skills levy, about how we get people into the industry, some of those reasons why people leave. So yes, it's about facilities. Yes, it's about conditions. So having those tough conversations as well. So there are those short-term things which I think we all agree, collaboration, having a single voice is really important, but also thinking about those wider, longer-term conversations as well, which we can have alongside.
Well said. And Jim?
Pretty much the same, really, in terms of collaboration, but in terms of actions for the next 6 months, I think the one thing, well, two things really. One would be to lobby for getting the sector back as a priority skill, and secondly, to initiate a definitive programme which would be suitable for NEETs, because we do have that opportunity within our sector to bring NEETs into warehousing roles and bring them into logistics, and then develop them along the career path that Kevin outlines.
Great. Okay. Well, I just want to say thanks for all your great comments and thoughts and time. There's some really interesting stuff, and I hope the industry can sort of work together for the greater good and to improve the world. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure our viewers and listeners will really like it.